All right. Thank you everyone for joining. My name's Galen Van Horn, him pronouns. I work for the Washington State Department of Agriculture Regional Markets team. So we support small and direct marketing, farms, ranches, and food businesses in accessing markets that are right size, shape, and fit for them. And you all are local food system infrastructure grant awardees, grant recipients for the fall 2023 round. And we're really excited to partner with you and bring you on board to our process as we develop it. This is the second time that we have run this grant, and we learned a lot from the first time, and we're trying to get better. And so if things aren't working for you, definitely let us know, and we're trying to adapt and make things work. There are some things that we're not able to do, like change this from a reimbursement based grant that we know will be really helpful. But definitely let's keep the conversation going on everything. I'm supported by my colleagues Ivy Fox and Sarah Lemon, who is working specifically on meat and poultry projects. So you'll have one of us assigned as your kind of grant manager, your first point of contact, but we all work together on this program and may step in to support your project, if we're out of office or anything. But for full context, I have two 9-month-old twins, and I'm still taking some paternity leave for that. Yeah, double eyebrow raise. So I'm working not quite full time. But that's a little bit here nor there. Let's just jump into our presentation here. So again, congratulations. You're one of 96 awarded applicants, totaling 6.3 million in funding for this round. And so you're part of a group of amazing folks that are working in local food systems, building supply chains, strengthening the capacity and resiliency of the post-harvest local food infrastructure, improving businesses' ability to aggregate, process, transport, and store Washington-grown foods, and fostering the creation and sale of value-added products in local markets. So we really want to emphasize that all of these projects are kind of pulling in the same direction, and we're part of a bigger system that is working together for all of Washingtonians. So it's, while it may be super impactful for your business, and we're really excited about that, I think it is just really also exciting to think about the ripple effects and the wider impacts that any individual project has on the system, on our food system. So for today, we don't want to kind of overload people too much. We're trying to take steps that make sense. So we're just going to go over the key dates, eligible and ineligible expenses, make sure we're really clear there. How to request reimbursement for grant purchases, how to request budget modifications. So probably the most useful things that you all want to know. We'll go over kind of grant activity reporting and technical assistance support that you may request. So jumping right in, oh, my apologies. Projects, so the key dates. So there's kind of two different key date categories here. One is for projects through June 30th, 2024, or December 31st, 2024. And that's specifically for meat projects that received special federal funding that December 31st. So that's a small subset of projects. Most projects are either through June 30th, 2024 or through June 30th, 2025. So coming back here for the first section, the first thing that you all should be aware of are your project milestones. So if you have a plan, you should have a plan in place for when you're going to be making your purchases, when you're going to receive your grant-funded equipment services, and if your timelines are shifting and things are being delayed, let us know. We'll try and work with you on making sure that you're going to get to spend your full grant award within the timeline, because we do realize that June 30th of this year can be tight, especially for a reimbursement grant for a lot of farms and food businesses. Speaking of reimbursement requests, those can happen as often as twice monthly. So that's just helpful for planning your expenses and when you're going to submit for reimbursement. We um, like to not have to do it more than twice monthly, otherwise we kind of get overwhelmed on our end processing all of that. And then there are two kind of reporting requirements that we have in the grant portal. This is all happening in the grant portal. There's a quarterly report. So for these projects, it'll be March 2024. Oh, and then I guess another one for the December 31st group. And that's really just a progress report, like how are things going, any like early successes that you want to share out, any kind of cool photos of how things are going along and with smiling people in them, excited to work in local food systems. We like those. And so really light there. And then a final report in July 2024, and that'll be more of the reporting on what you actually did with the funds, how it was impactful, kind of the results you're seeing now and the results you're anticipating, if things changed from your original proposal. And then also any feedback on the program in general will happen in the final report. And then the bolded thing at the end here, so all items or activities need to be paid for and received by the June 30th for those projects, 2024, or the December 31st, 2024 for those projects. And so if your item is delayed, like that could be a challenge. So work with us on just letting us know. This is a requirement for all state agencies. We can't make any purchases or spend public funds for things that aren't paid for and received. Hopefully this isn't a surprise, but this is a very strong requirement. So then flipping down to projects through June 30th, 2025, so next June, it's the same first 4 bullets here. Your project milestones are something you should really be keeping track of. It's interesting, I guess. So for everyone, like it's very exciting to get grant funding, and it feels like just like an amazing opportunity, and it is also extra work. So executing a grant project is work. It takes time and coordination, and so we recognize that, and we just want folks to plan that in, I guess, to their schedule. It's I do not appreciate the idea that it's quote free money. That's not the way that I see it, where it's a shared investment and it also takes a lot of work to accomplish. So same reimbursement request twice monthly, same quarterly reports, although you'll have many more of them. And then final report in July 2025. And then the bold here is a little bit different and very important. So for projects through June 30th, 2025, you'll have 2 separate budgets. You'll have your budget for before June 30th, 2024, and your budget for after June 30th, 2024. And if something is budgeted for before June 30th, 2024, it needs to be spent before June 30th, 2024. And the same goes for after. If it was budgeted for after, it needs to be spent after. This all has to do with our funding that we get through the state legislature, which is allocated by the fiscal year, so through June 30th. And we get a certain set amount of money for each fiscal year that can't be switched between fiscal years. We don't have that flexibility at our level. So you can, if something is feeling like it's not going to be able to get done in the first period, but something else would be easy to get done, we could shift items, swap items between. The costs would have to line up. We can't increase your budget in any one period, but that we do have that kind of flexibility. Yeah, so just keeping on track of that and really thinking about these as 2 separate budgets, kind of 2 separate projects for those larger projects through June 30th, 2025. One more note on dates for everyone is that in your grant agreement, there may have been in your budget section, attachment A, there may have been a section with a timeline that had dates put into it. Those really only relate to whether they are before June 30th or after June 30th. If you're not able to make the timelines, make the purchases and receipts by those timelines, that's okay, as long as they're still happening in like before June 30th or after June 30th. If you have questions about that, feel free to reach out to us.
Yeah, and those were the dates that you guys chose too.
Yeah,
So it's just the translation on that. And
yeah,
just we are going to continue to repeat ourselves just to be cautious too on that same reimbursement request. Just a reminder that we process them up to twice monthly, and that it takes folks should expect about 30 days to get those reimbursements.
great point, great point. Yeah, we're going to get into exactly how you do the reimbursements, but yeah, in terms of your planning, um, it's like our fiscal team gives themselves 30 days to process them, and that's after receiving a complete one that has no errors or any additional documentation needed. So sometimes it can take a little bit of time to submit a reimbursement request, find out that you don't exactly have everything that you need, get everything you need, resubmit it, and then we move it along for a review by our fiscal team. This is probably one of the harder things with this grant is this whole reimbursement, the timeline, and so something to focus some of your energy on in your planning for sure. Or if you have a very simple project that'll just be one purchase, you can consider yourself lucky. So moving along, we're going a little slow here, so I'm gonna try and move us along. So eligible expenses. So these are all, uh, all your purchases that you submit for reimbursement will be reviewed and approved by WSDA grant specialist, one of us, prior to reimbursement. And so these kind of eligible items are items listed in your grant portal in your approved budget. And then also any additional or alternative items with an approved budget modification, which will also happen in the grant portal. And actually, once you have an approved budget modification, it will update your approved budget in the grant portal. So something that we added in this grant round. So we're hoping this will give you a lot of clarity in terms of what it'll show you your budget that you have left for each budget item. So you'll be able to really quickly see where your project's at and what you still need to do and what you've already done. So those are the only eligible expenses. We've got to have them in the approved budget. Ineligible expenses, I want to spend a little bit of time here. Obviously, any non-approved expenses are ineligible, but there's some other things that maybe aren't as obvious. So any payments made prior to the grant agreement start date, the date of execution, where you got that signed agreement back from WSDA with both parties signed, we can't reimburse for. So that has to be after the grant start date. Any payments made to other businesses you own are actually considered a conflict of interest under our grant agreement and Washington state law. And so if you happen to have a contracting business in addition to your farm or food business, you can't hire yourself through this grant to do work on your grant, or any immediate family members either. If you have any concerns about this, do reach out to us, and we'd be happy to talk through the details with you. The fourth items here are staff hours that aren't documented as payroll. And so to be able to reimburse staff hours, we do need to see any like the general ledger or payroll or pay stubs that show the payment made to the staff, the hours worked, and then also that taxes were taken out. So any kind of guaranteed payment or direct draw for an owner that's not actually on payroll is not reimbursable under this grant. That can be difficult, especially for kind of these smaller owner operator organizations, but you are welcome to contract out any of the work in your grant agreement as well. So definitely reach out to us if you are planning on paying yourself through a guaranteed payment or like kind of a direct draw from your business, and you were thinking that you were going to get reimbursed for that. And let's talk through kind of alternative routes that we could find for spending down your grant funds.
And Galen, likewise, like folks can still do the work themselves and not get reimbursed. So just clarifying, you can still do it, but not getting reimbursed. So
Right. Great point. And then the final one here is that we don't fund pre-harvest expenses with this grant. So I guess this is more of a thing for budget modification requests. So we're not going to approve any budget modification requests for any kind of soil amendments, ag inputs, greenhouses, irrigation lines. Those aren't eligible expenses under this grant agreement. Okay, moving on. And I just realized I don't have the chat up. Might be helpful. You're welcome to kind of put questions in the chat. My team will try and answer, but then we can also just get to them at the end. Okay, so reimbursement process. Once your approved budget items have been paid for, and then received and delivered. So both of these, then you can start your reimbursement process. And so if you put a deposit down on an item and you haven't received it and you just get an invoice that says deposit, that is not reimbursable. And technically we actually are not allowed to reimburse for any deposit, anything that just says deposit on it, because it hasn't been received or delivered yet. And so if that's something that you were expecting to do, please do reach out to us and let's talk. It has to be received. So repeating myself here, send in up to 2 monthly reimbursement requests, and those happen in the grant portal. And so you should have gotten an email, I think like a week and a half ago, with just like a link to the grant recipient resources page, which has this link to the grant portal. And the grant portal won't be open to you until you have your grant agreement in place. So if you're still working on us and getting your final grant agreement in place, you won't see any of this there yet. But once you get that agreement in place, then you'll have an active grant in the portal. And that's where reimbursement requests will come through, and there's detailed instructions on the grant recipient resources page on how to actually do the reimbursement requests with pictures, and we'll probably put together a separate just video too, following up, just going through an example of doing a reimbursement request. So once you complete one, then we review it, and we'll follow up in email or phone if any changes are needed. And then once it is completed, we'll confirm the total approved reimbursement amount in the grant portal, and then we'll disperse funds within 30 days after approval of the reimbursement request. We have mentioned this before, but you will need to be registered as a statewide vendor. And there's information on that on the grant recipient resources page too. It takes like 5 to 10 days. And you're just registering your organization with the Office of Financial Management, and then you're eligible to receive payments from state agencies. And there is also a direct deposit authorization form that you can additionally submit, and we would highly recommend that for everyone. That expedites your payment by about a week or more, because otherwise a physical check is printed and then sent from OFM to our department, and then our department sends it to you. So it's like multiple mail cycles there, and you never want to be waiting on a big check coming through the mail. I don't think, not these days. Grantees will be reimbursed for 100% of approved eligible expenses up to the total award amount. Just a reminder there that this is not a match grant. So continuing with the reimbursement process, a little more details: staff time and labor. The information we need is hours, pay rate, description of the work, and then, as I mentioned, supporting documentation, expanded general ledger, timesheets, or pay stubs that show the employee hours billed to the project during the payroll period, the employee net pay, and then other payroll expenses like taxes. And then we have kind of a catch-all of everything else. So services, equipment, materials, and supplies. And we'll want to see the description of what it is was purchased, so that making sure that it matches the approved budget line item, quantity and price information, and then proof of payment and receipt or delivery. And let's get into that a little bit more. What does that mean? So proof of payment, this is another area where things can kind of get slowed down with your grant project, so it's really important to be clear on it now. So it could be a couple different things, and it might be one document, and it might be multiple documents that you need to pull together to get full proof of payment. So it could be a receipt or a paid invoice. It could be a receipt from like Home Depot that just show like a normal receipt that you take a picture of and you upload it, or it could be a paid invoice from a seller, but critically, it needs to show the method of payment and a balance of 0. And this is just like a very specific requirement that our fiscal team has because there is a lot of fraud around people editing their own invoices and such. So we want to see the credit debit card ending in 123, for example. And I think if it says the check number, our fiscal team still wants to see a copy of the check. So that actually doesn't quite cut it either. So if your paid invoice doesn't have a balance of 0 or kind of the method of payment, that's okay. You'll just need to insert the order invoice, upload to the grant portal, the order invoice that just shows that what you ordered, describes it, plus proof of payment, such as a copy of a bank statement or a card statement showing the payment was processed, or a copy of the cashed check, the cleared check, front and back, that has the stamp from your bank that it was cleared. So a lot of times this information can just be brought up from your bank's website. And you should, for your bank statement, it should show the name of the bank and at least the last 4 of the account number. If it shows the full account number, we'd actually ask that you kind of redact that in some way. And if there are other expenses on your bank statement that you don't want to be a public record, definitely redact those as well. We don't really have the capacity on our team to kind of be redacting things for you. And at this point, I will give a quick tip for folks working on Windows operating systems. I'm sure there's something similar for Mac OS. The snip tool, which is just, if you search in your start menu, it should come up. It looks like this, and I was using it to kind of create to create resources for you all. It's super powerful, and you could just get a snip of your bank statement. Within snip, you can black out the items that you don't want to be shown, and then save it as a picture, and then upload that as proof of payment. That might be your easiest, fastest way to do it.
Yeah, and I also just want to mention too that a paid stamp does not count. So I just
Mhm.
want to be clear that since anybody can really pick up a paid stamp, that's why there are going to have to be that additional proof of payment if there is a no 0 balance. Just
Yeah. Yeah, thanks. Yeah, it's super common for vendors to just send back the order invoice with a paid stamp on it. And unfortunately, that is not good enough proof of payment for us. And then lastly, proof of receipt or delivery. So we do, like, especially for equipment, we like to see a copy of a delivery confirmation or just a photograph of the received item in place. And this again is all uploaded to the grant portal, and the detailed instructions on how to do that are on the grantee resources webpage, grant recipient resources webpage. I think that's all. Well, I guess one more note is just that it is uh, helpful, I think, probably just to save all the stuff in the same place. And I guess we'll get to the records retention here in a little bit. I have a couple more notes here on the reimbursement process. So for used purchases, this is a question we get. Used equipment is eligible to be purchased. And if it's gonna be just from like a person down the road or in the next county who happens to be selling what you're looking for, we do need to see a bill of sale. That includes a description of the item sold, the date, name, address, phone of the seller and buyer, signed by the seller, verifying payment was received, and then a copy of the cleared check or money order. Uh, please do not use cash for grant purchases. I know that can be uh, culturally difficult for a lot of sellers in the used farm equipment market. But see if they'll take a money order or some kind of guaranteed check. And then there is a bill of sale example on the grant recipient resources webpage, which you can just download and use as your bill of sale. It has everything that you need there. Okay. I'm going to move us along. Budget modification process. So budget modifications are completed in the grant portal. And again, there are detailed instructions for this on the grant recipient resources webpage. And changes will be approved if they retain or enhance the project's achievability, impact your business viability, and benefit to local food supply chains and market access. So essentially, if it aligns with what you were intending to do, it's like just another piece of a similar project that increases your local food capacity, then we can approve it. The kind of note, the one thing is that we definitely want you to request a change prior to making any purchase. And then the big thing is that your grant award won't change. So if something goes up in price, um, uh, or if you just wanted to add something into your budget, it can't go over your total grant award amount. And one specific note on budget modifications is that if you have an approved budget line item that is you expect to go over price by more than 20%, then you actually do need to do a budget modification request per our grant agreement, and just to let us know that it's way over budget. And that's okay. We can still reimburse it. It just does mean it will come out of another area of your budget. And then if things come under uh, budget, it's kind of Annie's question in the chat, so if you anticipate having underspend, then you can also do a budget modification request to add in an item that maybe it's a part of your project that wasn't fully funded because you had a partial award, or it's something else that you realized would be really helpful um, for the overall impact of your project, and you want to include that in. We'd be happy to review both of those. So then just a few more notes here on the budget modification process. So similar to the reimbursement process, we'll follow up with email or phone with any questions or concerns or requests that we have. And then once you're approved, you'll receive an email confirmation. And you'll actually want to save this email confirmation as like kind of with your grant agreement, because then it becomes a record with your grant agreement of your approved budget. And then you can make those purchases related to your budget modification request. Okay, not too much left, then we'll have some good time for Q&A. So kind of a larger question that some of you might be having are like, what are my documentation requirements? How should I stay organized here? So within your grant agreement, there is a requirement to retain digital or physical grant documentation for a period of 6 years. And so this includes contract-related documents, so a copy of your completed grant agreement, and we recommend, like I said before, any copies of approved budget modification request emails, and then any contract amendments should they arise. Not anticipating that at the moment. And then reimbursement request related documents. So for each reimbursement request, the proof of purchase documentation for all the grant funded items or activities. That's it. So there's no need to like keep any kind of description, record, or narrative or anything like that. You will complete those reports, the quarterly and the final reports, but those are for us, not necessarily needed on your end. And these can be digital, like I said, digital or physical. So definitely whatever works best for you. I know folks have different feelings. I mentioned the reporting. I think I basically went over this whole slide already, actually. So quarterly reports, more progress reporting questions, share challenges. Oh, well, so specifically, I don't think I mentioned this, but we would love for you to share any challenges you're having in these and like things you might need support. I mean, you're welcome to do this anytime. Don't have to wait for a quarterly report to reach out to us, but this might help. This might be a way where you're like, oh yeah, I actually, there's something. And then also you can just share successes and photos of exciting progress or benefits. The final report is going to be where you report on completed activities, what you learned, and positive outcomes. And then also how any feedback for us specifically on how we're doing, things that you liked, things you didn't like, so we can make this program better in the future. I've mentioned it a couple times now. So the grant website, the grantee resources. So I highly recommend that everyone bookmark the grant recipient resources webpage on your preferred browser, because that's where you'll find grant instructions, as well as links to this presentation when we get it uploaded. And then you can see there on the screen is a clip from it using the snip tool. And so there's that link to the fall 2022 link grant portal. And so you all will want the purple one there, the fall 2023 grant portal, 2 different grant portals. And then you can see at the top there, the most important thing people are asking about is reimbursement request instructions. So you can access those there. And Peter asked about quarterly report, if there's any instructions yet on those, and they're in the grant, you'll see it in your grant portal, but they're not available yet. We'll let you know as soon as they're available. It's going to be we're just finalizing the questions. It's going to be short, like 4 or 5 questions for the quarterly reports. Okay, finally, technical assistance. We're here to help. One-on-one support, phone, video conference, email, maybe even in person, hopefully. If it works out, or if that makes sense. So please don't hesitate to reach out to us. You'll have your kind of main grant manager, which probably reach to first. And then if you are having trouble, there's the local food infrastructure at agr.wa.gov email as well to reach all 3 of us. And then in addition to just how to be successful in your grant, we're going to be providing some business development resources, technical assistance in that realm in the coming weeks as we find things that we think could be helpful for your grant projects.
So Galen, just to give another example too, like what technical assistance can be very broad, right? So it could be a produce safety training that's a full day workshop, but it could also be a 30-minute how to use Snippet, the Snip app too. So really, we can really just do a very broad range of potential activities. All that just could really ultimately we want to be in service to your project and to others and help be successful in that. So yeah.
Great. Yeah, great point. Thanks, Ivy. Sarah, anything else you want to add?
There's just a couple questions in the chat that I think we might as well share to everybody.
Cool. Let's get to it.
Oh, sorry. You got a whole Q&A thing next. My apologies. Well, what date can you start your projects? Your project is live as soon as you have a fully signed grant contract. So that means signed by both you and the director of the WSDA, Derek Sanderson. And you should be able to see that in your grant portal. So that'll be your grant start date. And yeah, we've had
Mhm.
one grantee actually already basically complete their whole project. They were just getting a trailer and they were able to buy it and have it received and submit the reimbursement. So yeah, as soon as your grant's ready to go, you're ready to go. And then Celeste asked, she's looking at a refurbished piece of equipment, all new mechanical components. Is there anything that might preclude that? And from our perspective, no, you just need the same sort of bill of sale documentation. So if you're buying it from somebody other than like an official dealer or retailer, yeah, same proof of payment. That's really the only requirement.
Mhm.
I want to jump back real quick to the question about the contract, though. If it is not in your, if you do not see a signed copy in your portal, you should assume you are not in contract yet, or connect with us first because it will populate back there. So just like give us a holler if you have a question about that or don't see it, need help finding that.
Mhm. And it will, your authorized representative should receive the copy of the fully executed agreement once that happens. But it will come through DocuSign again. So sometimes people's emails filter out DocuSign, and so that it might just be sitting there and you just didn't notice it had come back yet.
And I wanted to say hi. I'm Sarah Lemon. I see some meat grantees on here, and I've been out sick with COVID for the last 2 weeks, so you've probably been getting emails from both Ivy and Galen, and I just really appreciate your patience. This was terrible, terrible timing. I'm hopefully back to work for good now, and looking forward to working with you all. So yeah, and please feel free throughout the course of this to reach out to any one of us. But yeah, just wanted to say hello.
And I'm gonna go ahead and, well, maybe I'll keep sharing. There might be information that's helpful to pull from, but we are just in the Q&A section. So if folks want to, there's the raise hand function at the bottom of your Zoom screen, in the reactions tab, or at this point, you can go ahead and unmute and ask your question out loud, or just put it in the chat too. Oh, so Jorge asked, do we get any feedback on our grant application to know the strong and weak points? Yeah, we'd be happy to do that. We're a little delayed on that front at the moment, so it might be just a couple weeks before we're able to get that. But please email local food infrastructure at agr.gov. I'll put that in the chat with that request.
I just have a small question, and I'm 99% sure you answered the question. So basically, you had said that if something was happening towards the end of our grant period, let's say June 30th, and like something is keep getting delayed and still hasn't been delivered, and it's not going to get here until July 5th, would that be something that is like, nope, you cannot get that thing? Because you said that was a really hard rule, but also that we could talk to you about it. And so just wanted to clarify with that.
Yeah, I think if it's going to happen within 10 days after the June 30th time, so by July 10th, technically, I think our fiscal team would give us a little flexibility, but it would be on a case-by-case basis. So I can't make any promises, but that's where I would, if we have that, like kind of, if we know ahead of time and we can kind of plan for it, and you can show that you kind of already made payment and you're just waiting for delivery, right? Then yeah, that's where we can work on it.
Cool. Thank you.
And then Dorcas had a question around if after this we're going to be able to get, if people will get their contracts. The contracts are going to be generated through the portal and then sent to you that way. So if you haven't gotten it yet, we should have folks reach out to their contract managers just to see if maybe we're waiting on a UEI number or a new budget, a revised budget. So let's just like connect on that.
And Dorcas, just that yours was already sent, so maybe it's in your junk folder, but I'll go ahead and resend it too, and then let's connect after this for sure.
A lot of people are seeing it in their junk mail, so just heads up on that.
And then Shaylee's having problems with their application. The application won't open. Do you mean the grant agreement, I think, Shaylee.
Yes, it's the signed grant agreement that won't
Okay.
open. It says it's like it's just like a non-real, or like, like file error type of thing.
Okay, yeah, we'll look into that. That can sometimes happen with the DocuSign files, and we can upload a different one. And
Okay,
then
thank you.
yeah, sure. So David asked, do we need to submit any equipment details before we purchase it, or just submit invoices and proof of payment? So this is actually a good question, and it gets back to kind of eligible expenses. And so the items listed in your approved budget should match the details on your proof of purchase that you submit. So I guess here, the description, quantity, price for any services, equipment, materials, or supplies should match your approved budget. Approved budgets kind of have different levels of detail in them. And so if you have a concern that your invoice is going to describe a piece of equipment or something purchased for the grant that you feel does match your approved budget, but you're worried that someone else might think it doesn't match your approved budget, definitely you can send it to us, reach out, and just clarify with us, just to make sure that we're on the same page about what you're purchasing in your approved budget. Patricia asked, what if your purchase includes deposit as part of the final payment? So Patricia, we can't reimburse for a deposit. So if you make a 20% deposit on something and then you get a paid invoice for the deposit from the vendor, we're not able to reimburse that because it hasn't been received. The goods or services haven't been received. And so what happens there is we need to wait until the goods items are the equipment, supplies, the item has been received, and the final payment is made, and then we can reimburse the full amount. So you will get paid for the deposit, but it needs to be part of submitted for reimbursement after you've received the item and it's been fully paid for. There's some ways that you can, if you're working with a vendor that needs to do work, that is doing work with you, doing work for you related to getting your equipment delivered, built, delivered, if there's some services involved there, like consultation meetings, kind of design or engineering, if they can invoice for those things separately as services received, then we can reimburse for those. There may be a little bit of working with the vendor to kind of divide out what is actually happening, what services are done and completed, rather than just the blanket deposit invoice. So if you have questions about that and what I meant by that, definitely shoot us an email or reach out to us. And Joy asks about part in the agreement, contractors need to be on the SAM.gov website or a written certificate. So technically, you just need to be on the SAM.gov website. It's and working with just reputable contractors, it's not something that you're going to submit with reimbursement requests. Beatrice asks, you responded to this question, but I would like to know more. If I buy the equipment that's under budget that I submitted, what are the other approved equipment that are allowed? Yeah, great question. So it is pretty broadly defined. It needs to align with your project purpose as you described it. So that's actually in your grant agreement in attachment A, the project purpose section. And so any request will be approved I'm highlighting it here on the screen. They retain or enhance the project's achievability, impact business viability, and benefit to the local food supply chains and market access. So you can propose a budget modification, something that you'd like to add in because you've come in under budget. As long as we're able to clearly see that it aligns with these criteria here, we'll approve it and add it into your approved budget.
So an example would be like you just did a wash pack facility. You wanted to get some additional accessories with it that maybe you weren't planning on that would help with the wash pack, or get some more harvest buckets that could help with the cleaning. So it's just like it can really be broad, like Galen is saying.
Yeah, thanks, Ivy. And then Jorge asks, we were approved for a truck. If it needs tires, are we allowed to include that in the total price? This is another really great question. So yes, in terms of your approved budget, the line item doesn't have to just be a single purchase. So if in your example, if you are approved for a truck, basically what we take that to mean is like getting you everything you need to have an operating truck. And so if that means kind of purchasing some portion of it here, getting a used vehicle that needs tires, and then we have budget left over to get the tires, that's okay. That can all be included in that one approved line item. It doesn't necessarily have to be like truck and tires all divided out, as long as they clearly fit into that one project goal. And then the slides will be not in the grant portal, but on the added to the grant recipient resources page here, which I'll follow up with everyone with this link again. So definitely bookmark it this time, or star it, or just put it in a place where you can easily come back to it anytime you need. All right, we got like 5 minutes left or so. Happy to answer more questions. I think I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording though. Stop share. Stop.